Now I'm going to show you how we can use guides and grids in order to gain more precision in After Effects. If we go up to our view menu, you can see with it we have this area called Show Rulers, and we're going to need to turn this on in order to create guides. If we select anywhere within the ruler from the top, we can bring down a guide, and you'll see the dotted line that represents where the guide is. If we let go, the guide appears. We can also do this from the side and create vertical guides. We can move guides once they have been placed, and if we want to create move stuff in our composition without selecting any of the guides, we can go to Lock Guides. And as you can see, the arrow doesn't change to the tool for moving the guides. If I want to move the guides again, I can simply go up to View and select Unlock Guides, and you'll see that the arrow changes so that I can move the guides. If I want to get rid of all the guides, I can just simply select View and Clear Guides. I'm going to Control Z, and we can also just hide the guides if we want to use them for later. And go back to View and Show Guides, and they'll reappear where they were originally at. Okay, now I'm going to clear the guides so I can talk about grids. And I'm going to hide the ruler also. Okay. In order to make a grid appear, we can go up to the View, and underneath our guides area, we have the grid area. You can see that the grid is a series of intersecting lines. The solid lines are the actual grid lines, and the dotted lines in between are the subdivisions. We can set these in our preferences in order to get it more to our liking. We can also hide the grid by going to the View and selecting the Hide Grid. For a faster way to show the grid, we can hold Control and press the apostrophe key, and we can make it disappear by pressing the apostrophe key again. We can also use a proportional grid, which is similar to the regular grid, except it will cut the composition into proportional pieces rather than adding a grid line every few pixels. The only way we can get this grid line to show up is by holding the Alt and pressing the apostrophe key. We can make the proportional grid disappear by holding Alt and pressing the apostrophe key. Or we can also just press the apostrophe key and it'll disappear. The apostrophe key also brings up the title and action safe by itself, and you'll notice that I can't have both the grid, the proportional grid, and the safe frames on at the same time. Now we'll take a look at some of our view options. If we go in the View menu, we can see here that we have view options. These are also preferences that we can set so that we can see how we would like to view our layers in the composition window. Here we can turn off all the handles and controls by simply clicking in this area. Or we can turn off the handles, which are the little boxes that appear around the layer. We can hide and show masks so that we can see the final output of an image without the mask controls being visible. We can also turn off the effect controls and make it possible to view keyframes, motion paths, and the motion path tangents. within the composition window. If we have a camera or a spotlight in our composition, the field of view for the camera and the area effect of the spotlight will be visible as a wireframe. Here we can change between having the wireframe visible only when the camera or the spotlight is selected, or we can have it on all the time or turned off at all times even when it's selected. And here we can also change the pixel aspect ratio correction. This is when we would bring in composition or footage that's a different pixel aspect than the composition that we're working on. And we can simply click it, and you'll see that it's for the preview person only. So when we output, it will actually be in the original format, but we'll be able to see it within the preview. Sometimes we may need to zoom in and zoom out of our composition in order to get a better view of it from farther away or from closer into the composition. In order to do this, we can use the zoom tool. And I've already shown that you can click and drag to zoom into an area, or you can simply click to zoom in. And if you hold the Alt key, you can zoom out. Another way we can do this is by clicking here, and you'll see that we get a list of zooms that we can go to. And you'll notice that the composition window stays the same size no matter how much we move into the image. We can also go up to View and select Zoom In and Zoom Out. If your mouse has a scroll button, we can also use that to zoom in and zoom out. You can also use the shortcut keys of holding Control and pressing plus or minus. You'll notice that doing it this way will affect the size of the composition window. Sometimes we may need to zoom into our timeline in order to get smaller increments of time so that we can work frame by frame or with the whole composition of the timeline. We can also use the plus and minus buttons separate from the control key, and you'll see that it zooms in and zooms out for the timeline, where holding Control will zoom in and zoom out for the composition. Let's take a look at our resolution and quality of our layers. If we go up to the View menu, you can see that we can change the resolution of the composition. You can see that the picture looks very pixelated. And we can also change the setting of the resolution here. The difference between the full, half, third, and quarter is the way that the computer calculates the pixels. At full, the entire composition is calculated. At half, every other pixel is calculated. And you'll notice that I'm at 50% magnification, and that when I go from full to half, it doesn't seem to make much difference. And that's because I'm not at the actual size of the image. So if I were to zoom in, you would see that it's more pixelated. Because this is at 100%, we can see how it calculates every other pixel. And if we were to move out, we can see that since we're viewing it at half the size, we would only have to calculate half the pixels. So at 50% at half, we would see the image pretty much the same as it would be, but the computer would be processing it differently. Only when we go to the lower levels of resolution do we see the pixelation. And for the third and the quarter, the computer will calculate every third pixel for thirds and every fourth pixel for quarter, and that's going horizontal and vertical. Separate from the resolution, we can also adjust the quality of our layers. And you'll see this area right here for the switches, and this is the quality. You can see the difference in the line here in the switch. The higher quality goes from the bottom left to the top right, and looks like a very smooth line. If we click in it, it starts going from the top left to the bottom right, and it looks like a very jagged line. Doing this, we change the resolution of the layer itself separate from the composition window. These areas actually change the resolution of the entire composition, while this area for the switches of the layers changes the resolution of the actual image. And it's not really that much of a difference here, but when it's rendered out in its final output, you'll be able to tell the difference if you leave any of these at a low quality.